4 o'clock, and I'll call the meeting to order. And the first item of business is adoption of the agenda. Do I have a mover? Councillor Finch.
Moved by Councillor Finch, seconded by Councillor Mitchell, that the agenda be adopted and printed as circulated.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And having adopted the agenda, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Not seeing any. Minutes and business arising out of the minutes. Councillor Finch.
Moved by Councillor Finch, seconded by Councillor Mitchell, that the minutes from the November 5th, 2025 council meeting be adopted and printed as circulated.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Nobody submitted for the public comment period. No public meetings and drainage meetings. So delegations, 7A, Hannah Yeager and April Nix, policy planning from Oxford County regarding proposed amendments to Chapter 10 of the official plan. I think you guys both know how this goes. Make sure the little red light is on. And I think your slideshow is ready to go, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So, good morning, Mayor and members of Council. We're here today as part of our consultation on amendments to the official plan regarding implementation policies. And I'll have you move the slide forward, please. Thanks. So I'll start with providing some background on the project. In May of 2022, community planning staff proposed reviewing Chapter 10 to County Council as part of a phased approach to updating the official plan. And since then, as we all probably know, there's been many changes to the Planning Act and a recently updated 2024 provincial planning statement that has affected how municipalities approach the development review and land use planning in general. So recognizing the breadth of these changes, we're now proposing to prioritize amending these implementation policies to essentially achieve 3 goals. We're looking to conform with legislation, provide opportunities to streamline review procedures, and add clarity to the existing practices that we do. On September the 10th, County Council permitted staff to initiate this project, which is why we're here today. So we're looking to inform and consult with local councils and staff, and we've also included a copy of the draft policies and the staff report from that County Council meeting as attachments to today's agenda. Next slide, please. Now, we won't be discussing all of these bills, but really this slide is intended to illustrate the scope of how much the Planning Act has changed or been amended that the proposed policies will be working to address and acknowledge. Every bill is, of course, a little bit different in terms of how it impacts municipalities and the Planning Act, but suffice to say we're taking a comprehensive approach to this technical update. Next slide, please. So in terms of our summary of the proposed changes, we're going to group them into 3 key categories. First, we have 2 slides on opportunities to improve the development process. Second, we have minor updates to add clarity and transparency. And lastly, we are going to cover requirements and procedures for major projects and studies. Next slide, please. So beginning with those opportunities to improve the development process, I want to first start by underscoring for Council's understanding that the following tools are optional, and generally the proposed official plan policy amendments are to enable the use of these optional tools. So that means without the official plan policies being in effect and a local bylaw being passed by an area municipal council, these tools can't be used and they're not required to be used. We've grouped these 3 tools together on this slide on purpose because there's an opportunity to use them together for certain types of planning applications, such as zoning bylaw amendments that are minor or technical in nature. The benefit of these tools is that they can help staff manage simpler applications faster with greater flexibility to meet legislative requirements while still maintaining legislative timelines. Generally, the proposed policies will give local councils the choice to provide delegated approval authorities to staff for those minor zoning bylaw amendments that are essentially technical in nature or administrative in nature. The proposed policies will list what these minor zoning bylaw amendments include. For example, that would include the lifting of a holding bylaw provision Or in the case of a surplus farm dwelling severance, that could be the zoning bylaw amendment associated with the parcel that's retained. This would not give staff the authority to refuse applications, and if an application were to be approved under these powers, a corresponding bylaw would still need to be passed at council at the next meeting. The proposed policies will also give councils the choice to permit staff to use alternative measures of notice. Under this permission, notice requirements would still need to be met. However, if, for example, a mail strike were to occur, notice could instead be published on a website to meet those legislative requirements instead of having to rely on physical mail. And lastly, the proposed policies will also give councils the choice to permit the ability for staff to waive a public meeting. We could see this being appropriate for applications where residents don't typically attend public meetings, or to use the example of a surplus farm dwelling rezoning, where there's already an opportunity for the public to provide feedback at the preceding consent application. Again, notice would still be given to residents about the application to provide any input as desired, and this would provide staff added flexibility to complete simpler applications faster and to remove potential duplication where it exists. The last thing that I'll note is that in addition to these tools being optional, they are flexible. So councils don't have to do all of the things that the official plan policies contemplate. You may, for example, try at first just having a bylaw that permits delegated approval authority for the lifting of a holding bylaw. And then once a level of comfort is established, consider revising that bylaw to expand its abilities, if of interest. A bylaw can also be designed with safeguards in mind. For example, council can rescind delegated approval authority. That's one example of a safeguard. Another example of flexibility is a bylaw can be designed to require that an application go through the typical public meeting requirement or a typical council decision exercise if it had certain characteristics that would essentially disqualify it from being appropriate for delegated approval authority or the waiving of a public meeting. The good news is that these types of details don't need to be determined right now, but we envision that they would be designed through consultation with staff and council, and then again, that bylaw would need to be passed at the local level for it to have an effect or have a power to do so. Next slide, please. So moving on to the second slide on opportunities to improve the development process, we've added informative policies on community planning permit systems, which is again, an optional tool. So in short, CPPS essentially combines multiple planning applications into what is called a single planning permit with a 45-day approval deadline. There are pros and cons to this tool. For example, it can be difficult for municipalities to initially design and implement, but it can also be used to incentivize specific types of development that meet a municipality's strategic goals. So for example, it's been used by other municipalities for things like incentivizing affordable housing or urban design or protecting vegetation in certain areas. I'm purposely describing these as informative policies because this type of tool works best by being designed and scoped carefully. So that would mean further background studies, amendments to the official plan policies, and then a CPPS bylaw would need to be passed before a locally appropriate and effective CPPS area would be established. Our second area of concern is complete application requirements. So these policies are intended to be informative in nature. So it means the plan would state what may be required as part of a complete application. And this change is intended to make the local planning system more transparent to users of the official plan. I'll note for Council's understanding that recent changes this year to the Planning Act through Bill 17 has added some complexity to how municipalities establish those complete application requirements in their official plan. This is something that we are actively monitoring and will navigate as we prepare a report for County Council. And then lastly, we're proposing to add policies that links development to the county's recently passed allocation bylaw that affects how water and wastewater allocation is assigned, withdrawn, or reallocated. So these policies will essentially ensure that development for example, site plans or subdivisions, are meeting the procedures and protocols that are outlined in that bylaw. Next slide, please. For our next category of changes, minor updates, in essence, these policies will either state existing processes, so for example, when planning approvals lapse, or when different types of applications are considered by municipalities under the Planning Act, or making small adjustments to existing criteria. And this latter point is largely informed by development planners who use those criteria in their day-to-day work. Again, the intent of these changes is to clarify our existing practices and requirements. So unlike the earlier two slides, they're not proposing new tools under the Planning Act or accommodating new legislative changes. They're really just intended to be minor and informative in nature. Next slide, please. Lastly, we have updates relating to requirements and processes for major studies and projects. So these proposed amendments are intended to achieve two key things. First, we want to reflect the Provincial Planning Statement and Planning Act regarding settlement area expansions, and we're also aiming to update our policies to reflect county and local municipal practices used for those expansions. So in short, the intent of these changes is to keep our tools up to date and reflect what we already do so well, so that when municipalities choose to approach the when and the where growth can happen, the how is easier to navigate. Next slide, please. In terms of next steps, we will be consolidating any feedback received from council and staff as we prepare revised official plan policies to circulate. After any final changes are made, we'll present our recommended official plan amendment to County Council, noting again that a separate amendment may be required for those complete application studies due to those changes through Bill 17 that I noted earlier. And provided the policies are passed as generally proposed and described, we can then work with area municipal staff and councils to explore and provide an additional understanding of any optional planning tools that may be of interest to local councils. That's it for me today. I want to thank you all for your time, and I'm available for any questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Questions from council? Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, first question has to do with the community planning permit system, and that seems like something that Zorra should look into doing. But it said that there needs to be a background study done before that can be set up. Is that something that each lower tier municipality has to do their own study, or is that something that can be done at the county level for several different municipalities?
Thank you for your question. So through the chair, the great thing about CPPS is it's quite flexible. So it could be something that a bylaw is established at the county level if it's appropriate for rural municipalities, if there's a common strategic goal, wherein a background study that's essentially initiated at the county level could be an appropriate thing. Conversely, for other municipalities, maybe in urban areas, they may have their own separate strategic initiatives where their own background studies could be initiated at the local level. So it could happen in multiple different ways.
Okay, thank you. And another question, I need to find the wording here. Has to do with delegation of approval of authority. And in this section, there's a lot of using mays and shells as in wording, and one must. But if I can, anyway, I'm looking for the exact section here. Anyway, it says, in part it says, where authority to approve an application has been delegated to an officer, employee, or agent, that shall not include the authority to refuse an application. So if we delegate authority to a staff member and they can only approve, what happens if the staff member doesn't think the application should be approved? What's the process there?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The process would essentially kick it into the regular process. So the Planning Act articulates very precisely that delegation of approval authority does not extend to refusals. So if a planner, for example, was concerned that the intent of the application did not meet relevant policies, then it would just go through regular public meeting where applicable and then council decision.
Okay, so that they would come back to and eventually end up at local council.
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
The intent of the changes is really to capture technical or administrative bylaw amendments, for example. We could describe them as low-hanging fruit,
Right.
things where they really meet the host of policies that are applicable. So really very minor and technical ones in nature.
Okay. I have a question for our own staff that relates to this, and there's numerous changes in the notification of the applications. We have a public engagement policy. Do we need to relook at that policy to become compliant with these new changes, or is our policy flexible enough to handle it without changing it?
So if I may, Diane, I would suggest from the Planning Act side, the intent of the additional flexibility is actually to provide us more of an opportunity to work together, particularly where we're doing more complex plans and initiatives, so say an area study or an area plan, because it may give us an opportunity to look at solutions where we can do notices more collaboratively to meet both the Planning Act intent, but also to build in council or the area municipalities' expectations in terms of their own standards or plans as it relates to community engagement, but to actually be able to do that more seamlessly through, say, a single notice or utilizing and leveraging a combination of tools, whether that's newspaper, radio, social media, website, etc. So in some cases, it may be streamlining some of those notices, and planning staff hope to work collaboratively with all the area municipalities if we are updating, say, standardized language from a legalese perspective. But in terms of the breadth of the flexibility for the OP, it's to actually be able to leverage flexibility in the Planning Act so we can work more flexibly with you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? All right, thank you very much. Next up is Senator Rob Black, Senate Standing Committee on Agriculture and Forestry on Soil Health in Canada. Senator, if you just make sure that red light is on the button and the microphone, then we will hear you, and I believe you're all hooked up for your slideshow.
Can you hear me? Great. Yeah, thanks very much. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I do want to thank Zorra Township Council for inviting me. I'm always excited to speak about the soil health report that the Senate Agriculture and Forestry Committee undertook, and it's entitled Critical Ground: Why Soil is Essential to Canada's Economic, Environmental, Human, and Social Health. I've left a copy for each of you. I do appreciate the opportunity. Just move forward here, and I will skip through some of my slides. When I joined the Senate in the February of 18, I immediately started pushing for a soil health study. The first Senate soil health study was completed in 1984, so it was 36 years out of date at that point, and so it's safe to say that we were long overdue. So on June the 6th, 2024, we did table a new comprehensive soil reports. That was 40 years to the month that we tabled it. Our hope right from the start was that this report would spur on the federal government to recognize what we already knew. We already know here in this room and elsewhere that soil is critical and is essential for life, and we must do all we can to preserve it. Obviously, it's written for the federal government, but I think it's a valuable tool for provincial, territorial, provinces and territories, as well as municipal governments as well. And I also hope it resonates with all Canadians. Our study took place over 18 months. We heard from 153 witnesses, including scientists, researchers, farmers, ranchers, stakeholders, and individual Canadians. We also reviewed 74 briefs, visited numerous farms across the country, and participated in a global soil partnership plenary assembly hosted by the United Nations in Rome in the summer of 2023. We used the wealth of knowledge that we received and tabled the report, as I said, in June of 2024. And so my next few minutes is just to provide a bit of a brief of the report itself. We did approach the study from a variety of angles, but our main findings were clear that soil in Canada and throughout the world are at risk and require immediate action to protect, preserve, and conserve our soils. We learned about the troublesome conditions of soil health and the pervasiveness of soil degradation, a state where soil significantly loses its ability to grow food, hold water, and promote biodiversity. Canada's soils are facing unprecedented challenges because of climate change, extreme weather events, pollution, and urbanization, which are degrading soils in every region of the country. The degradation of the soil from these extreme weather events threatens our food security and the environment and millions of individual livelihoods. And it's not just a particular problem of this province or this country. In fact, the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations found that in 2021, 30% of the world's soils were degraded to the point where they couldn't grow anything in them. And they estimated that that number could grow to as high as 90% by 2050. Well, that's 24 years from today, in essence, not too far from now. And it's hard to picture a world where we have hardly any healthy soil to grow our food and purify the air and the water that we breathe. But it might be a reality facing our future generations. Certainly, we looked at healthy soil practices, and we found the benefits of cleaner air and water, climate change mitigation, enhanced biodiversity, and food security. Healthy soil management practices also help farmers and producers improve their crop yields, which thereby increases profitability. Our committee learned about new technologies that were critical for improving soil health. We learned about smart tools. We also heard about many other innovations that are now a part of everyday life here in this county and in this province and around the world, including seed drills, satellite imagery, and moisture probes. For farmers, these tools translate into increased yields, outputs, and profitability, largely due to the innovative techniques resulting from better soil health. We also heard that precision agriculture is very expensive and requires strong Wi-Fi. And I don't know about you, but in my own home county of Wellington County, strong Wi-Fi is an anomaly in many places. All this to say that the committee learned much about the critical ground under our feet and how this vital natural resource is perishing as we speak. We also heard from farmers and scientists and researchers about how they're working to rebuild and renew soil across the country. So what can be done? We did prepare the report, which you have in front of you, and it contains 25 recommendations to government to protect, preserve, and conserve soil health across this country. Time doesn't permit me to go through all of them, but I do want to chat about just a few of them. And recommendation number one was for the federal government to designate soil as a strategic national asset. This requires a long-term strategy to protect and conserve soil across Canada. A strategy with concrete targets, timelines, and provisions that are regularly reviewed. And we did hear back from the government that they supported this recommendation in principle, recognizing that healthy soils are the foundation for sustainable production of food, fiber, and fuel. And so they said they would continue to take action. If I move on to recommendation number 7, the Government of Canada encourage provinces, territories, and municipalities to develop measures as a form of land use planning that best preserve and protect agricultural land in their jurisdictions. We all know that land use planning is a provincial and municipal jurisdictional issue, but certainly if we don't have the land to grow our food security, which is a national issue, becomes a concern. And so that was where that came in. So recommendation number 7 called for all levels of government to develop measures to protect ag lands. Full stop. We need collaboration at all levels of government. And the federal government supported this recommendation, saying that they continue to talk about, they explained that the Government of Canada works with provinces and territories and municipalities to support the protection and conservation of ag soils. And I guess I want to see that in practice more. Moving on to a number of the recommendations, and I will just skip through these, but you have them in your document. So for the sake of time, we won't go through them. But I do want to look at recommendation number 25, the last one, that the government recognize the urgent need to protect and conserve soil. 2024 marked the 40th anniversary since the first Senate soil study, the first of its kind, the most requested Senate study ever in the history of the Senate of Canada. That first one. This one is the most downloaded Senate study ever in the history of the Senate of Canada. So, but at the same time, our first and our last witness, who was the same individual, said to end our testimony that we don't have another 40 years to protect the soil that we're trotting on. Thankfully, the government supported this last recommendation, and they said they have begun efforts to improve and renew their focus on soil health. So that recognition certainly resonated with my committee. I'd encourage you to look at the report, which you have there. If you want to see it online, electronically, you have the postcards as well. As a result of this study, I tabled in June of this past year Bill S-230, which is an act respecting the development of a national strategy for soil health protection, conservation, and enhancement. A national strategy to inform Canadians about the importance of soil and ensure that the Government of Canada is mandated to make strides to protect, conserve, and enhance the health of soils. We need to ensure that we have healthy soil and enough of it to continue feeding our country and the world while also taking care of the environment. Once my bill passes, I don't say if, I say once my bill passes, both houses of Parliament, Bill S-230 will require the Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada to work in collaboration with provinces, territories, Indigenous bodies, various stakeholders, and Ministers of Natural Resources, Environment and Climate Change Canada, and Indigenous Services Canada, and any other relevant ministries to develop a national strategy to support and promote efforts to protect, conserve, and enhance the health of soils in Canada. So Bill S-230 is currently wending its way through the Senate chamber, and I would expect we might see it to move forward in the new year at some point. Certainly, this national strategy is just the beginning of a path towards soil conservation in Canada, but I think it's a necessary step to safeguard our soil now and into the future for generations to come. I look forward to continuing to shepherd this bill through Parliament so that the Ministry of Agriculture, Department of Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada can begin working on a national strategy. Remembering the UN's prediction that 90% of the world's soil could be degraded by 2050 in 24 years, my hope is that the Senate report moves ahead quickly and helps us to further define a vision for healthy soil in Canada. We don't have another 40 years. That's the bottom line. I sent letters out to every rural municipality in the province of Ontario in the spring, and so you would have got that as a municipality. We've had 17 municipalities already pass resolutions in support of the report and or the recommendations that were contained therein. And so I keep getting those almost on a weekly basis, which is kind of exciting. And those resolutions have gone all the way up the line through the provincial government and to the federal government as well. So I'm excited about that and the interest that's out there. And we'll just carry on. So with that, thanks for the opportunity to present. I'm happy to answer questions. I know I've got 4 minutes. I didn't think I'd do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from council? Councillor Mitchell.
First of all, Senator Black, thank you for being here today. And I've followed your work since you were appointed to the Senate. It's not unusual to read farm publications, the Ontario Farmer and all the rest, where there's a picture of Senator Black or an article on the work that you're doing. So I just want to thank you for all the advocacy that you do for the agricultural industry and the community it supports. I have 3 questions for you. In the report, it says 6.7% of Canada's land mass is suitable for agriculture, and 6.2% of Canada's land mass is actually used for farmland, which leaves 0.5%. Is that 0.5% primarily covered with buildings and roads and other things? And out of the picture now, or is there some land that is potential farmland?
I believe there's some land that's potential farmland. What the 6.7 is the ag land that's available, so it's not under pavement or under. But that difference is a good, very good question. I can't answer that specifically, but my guess is there is some land out there in this township and county and elsewhere that isn't being used, but certainly could be. So and that's that minimal amount.
But the basis of those numbers is that 0.5% of all the land is that what needs to be protected?
That plus the 6.2.
Yeah.
Because we hear from Federation of Agriculture that we're losing 319 acres a day to development and degradation of some sort. And so that's also what we need to protect as well.
Right. So I've been involved in agriculture, both as a farmer and working in companies that supply crop inputs and livestock feed for almost my entire life. So I'm reading through the report, found it very interesting, and an analysis of the current situation of soil. We broke it starting with the north, going west to east. And so I was familiar with most of the things that you were talking about in there, tillage, erosion, crop cover, organic matter. But there's one that I've never heard a farmer talk about, and I've rarely, if ever, read about, and that was the issue of soil organic carbon. So the question is, what is the importance of soil organic carbon, and why is it given so much prominence in the report when it's really a non-issue in the agriculture community?
So I will preface that by saying I am not a soil scientist, and so I will answer this from what I know and what I understand. Soil organic carbon is in the soil that helps to maintain the stability, the aggregation of it, and supports water retention and the microbes. Also supports the microbes and feeds the microbes that are in the soil. I watched a podcast this morning on the way here. Well, not on the way here, but before I got here, that says that a handful of soil has more microbes in that handful that we have in this world. And so that soil organic carbon will also be supporting that as well, is my understanding. Councillor Mitchell, thank you.
Yeah. And my last question is, what I get from this whole report was that it's basically targeted at three groups. The agriculture community, which is producers, farmers, the farm suppliers, researchers, advisors. At the other end, it's the politicians. You need to pass your legislation and get them on board with the recommendations. And in the middle is the consumer public that uses what we produce in agriculture, what comes from the soil. I think, and what I've seen in my lifetime, is that there has been continuing and good buy-in from the agriculture community on a lot of the things you're talking about. And it certainly has been, even if you go back 100 years to the agriculture practices that led largely to the Dust Bowl, there's been a huge improvements in soil management in the last 100 years. Politicians don't know anything about agriculture, present company excluded. And what they care most about, maybe present company excluded, is votes. And in the middle is the 98 or 99% of people who also don't know anything about agriculture, and all they care about is that what they get to buy and eat is cheap and available. So in order to get the politicians to do what we need to do, how do you get them without the support of the big group in the middle that really drives what politicians do?
Thanks for that question. The report, the first report in '84, was written specifically for the federal government. We think this report is actually something that resonates with all Canadians, and so that's a start. Mm-hmm. One of the recommendations, one of the 25 recommendations, talks about the need for further education at all, like, starting right down at the lower, and we know we have ag in the classroom and things like that. We met with those folks, but we think there's more that can be done, and so we're asking the federal government to support that for those very reasons, to support, to ensure that that middle group and knows about it. Your comment about the third tier, the politicians, no question. That's why we need, I get asked, what can we do to support? And whether it's a municipal council or whether it's an organization, we need your help to keep this in front of our politicians, their feet to the fire on this. We need to ask, the provincial government and the federal government, MPs and MPPs, what are they doing to, whether it's this report or just soil health in general, what are they doing to protect soil health? And I will tell you, we heard from each of the provinces, and I do believe Ontario is doing a pretty good job of soil health. But that's just in the last 5, 6, 7 years that they've started to bring that up again. But I think they're doing an okay job. And for our part, I think in the Senate, and I can only speak in the Senate, we need to raise the issues of agriculture, whether it's soil health or anything, just for as you've noted. I will share with you that the first 3 months of February, March, and April 2018, when I was appointed, agriculture was mentioned once in the Senate chamber. That's the day I got up and spoke about it. Last fall, 3 months, there were only 4 days that agriculture was not mentioned in the Senate chamber. That's not because of me or my few colleagues. It's because of organizations and individuals that are keeping ag issues at the forefront with my colleagues. And so I think that's a good thing too. We need to keep their feet to the fire. Hope that answered your question.
Yep. Thank you very much, sir.
Anyone else? Councillor Stewart.
Just more anecdotally, if you can provide feedback, but going back to the one slide that talks about the drivers and of soil degradation, does one stand out versus the other as a larger factor, right from like deforestation? Like there's 6 or 7 factors listed on the one graphic. I just wonder if through the studies, and I'm not asking you for percentage breakdowns or anything like that, but whether one of those factors of soil degradation stands out among the rest.
Was that this one? Yeah. So we heard that contamination is a big issue, and whether it shows it here or not. We did hear that there are 200,000 contaminated sites around the world, and the trouble is we don't have a good idea of where those are, or all of them, and how we can fix them. So we've heard that contamination is a fairly big issue. We also know that climate change and extreme climate events are causing erosion and wind erosion and things like that. So those are the couple that stand out in my mind. Thanks.
Anyone else? I believe there's a motion.
There is a motion. Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Finch. Whereas the Standing Senate Committee on Agriculture and Forestry published a report in 2024 titled Critical Ground, Why Soil is Essential to Canada's Economic, Environmental, Human and Social Health, known as the report, that contained 25 recommendations in total for the federal government. And whereas the work that Senator Black has done to bring not only the importance of soil to the forefront of the federal government, but Canadian agriculture, in specific Ontario agricultural food security, and how much the Ontario agriculture industry contributes to the federal and provincial gross domestic product is of critical significance to Zorra, indeed all of Oxford County. Therefore, be it resolved that the Township of Zorra fully supports all the recommendations in the report, and that the Township of Zorra urge the Government of Canada and the Province of Ontario to implement all the recommendations contained within the report and commit to recognizing a sense of urgency and act accordingly in order to protect and conserve soil as per recommendation 25. And that this motion be circulated to the following parties: Rob Black, Senator; Arpan Khanna, MP for the riding of Oxford; Ernie Hardeman, MPP for the riding of Oxford; Senate Standing Committee on Agriculture and Forestry; all municipalities within the County of Oxford; Oxford County Federation of Agriculture; the Ontario Federation of Agriculture; and the Christian Farmers Federation of Ontario.
Councillor Mitchell is the mover. Would you like to speak to that?
Yes, I do. I think it's quite appropriate that this municipality supports this initiative. We do have a thriving agriculture industry. We have 115,000 acres of prime farmland. And it's not only prime farmland, it's the primest farmland. We have most productive and, as a result, some of the most expensive farmland in Canada, outside of perhaps the Holland Marsh and the Okanagan Valley. I do have some concerns about some of the recommendations, in that 6 of the recommendations provide or ask to provide or increase government funding. There's 2 issues with that for me. One is that when the money for increased government funding comes from either increased taxes or increased borrowing. The other is that when you rely heavily on government funding to do something, invariably there's political influence that comes into it. But having said that, federal, provincial, and municipal governments waste billions of dollars every year on issues that are way less important than this one, and compared to other government expenditures, I think this is money well spent. And there are a few other industry options for funding this type of work. So if it's going to be done, it's going to require government funding. So that overcomes any reservations I have about that. There are 2 recommendations I will point out are specifically in line with the priorities that this council and Zorra Township have identified in the past. The senator referenced one, which was number 7. The Government of Canada encourages provinces, territories, and municipalities to develop measures as a form of land use planning that best preserve and protect agricultural land in the jurisdiction. And we've talked often about how we want to infill as opposed to expand our service villages. We see back the example of that where it's beginning to do the work on this major infill project. The other is number 11, which is the Government of Canada collaborates with provinces and territories to expand and deliver high-quality broadband internet access in rural areas to promote a wider adoption of precision agriculture techniques to enhance soil health. And that's something we have talked about over the last 2 terms of council. Fortunately, we're in the final stages, I believe, of the wire being put in the ground in Zorra Township, so that's being addressed. The last one that I want to mention specifically is recommendation 24. The federal, provincial, and territory governments give special consideration to the economic viability of agriculture and forestry producers in the development and implementation of all its future policies and programs related to soil health to ensure that producers are able to invest in soil health. And I would say that 99% of farmers want to leave their soil and their farms in better condition than they found it for the next generation. And but in order to do that, to do the long term, they also have to survive through the short term. And so they have to be have support, whether that's through lower taxes, fewer regulations, better international trade policies to make farming a viable option so that farmers can implement the recommendations that many of them are doing anyway. I think the focus is primarily work to be done at federal and provincial levels. Municipalities are only mentioned a few times in the recommendation, but as the senator just said, he needs the support of municipalities, boots on the ground quite literally, to assist him in getting his motion passed. And I appreciate your optimism that it's a when, not an if. And I hope that you're correct in that. So I think it's my privilege to bring this motion forward. I think it is a very important issue, and I think it's something that this township should fully endorse.
Councillor Finch is the seconder.
In Zorra, agriculture is our bread and butter for most residents in the township, and we want to do all we can to protect and conserve soil health. So I'd like to thank Senator Black for taking time to come and do this delegation. I support this motion.
Anyone else? Deputy Mayor.
I'll keep mine brief because I think Councillor Mitchell covered quite a lot of ground. No pun. I love that you snagged that right away. And I think the only thing that I think is missing is speaking to the importance of this in relation to the function of our agricultural land. We also are a top aggregate producing, did I say aggregate previously? Agricultural land. We're also a top aggregate producing municipality in our province, and the rehabilitation of those aggregate sites back to agricultural lands is a requirement of that operation, but one that I think we are well aware of is lacking tools in order to get us to that point. TAPMO is currently part of an active working group with Brock University that's looking to develop evidence-based guidelines for rehabilitation of aggregate extraction sites. And so that aligns, I have, through that exposure, learned that just how much I don't know about soil health, soil composition, zones and climate zones, and how all of that works. And I think because through that rehabilitation expectation, we are losing that functional agricultural land without having enough information and then policy in place to protect. So I am also in full support of this.
Anyone else? Yeah, I would agree. I think as is often the case, council said everything. There's not much left for me to really add to that, other than I will say I'm really glad we ran into each other in that pub that day. I think this is fantastic work, especially on behalf of Zorra Township and in Oxford County. And you have my contact info on anything I can do to help you push this forward. Oxford County, Western Ontario Wardens Caucus, et cetera, Ministers of Agriculture in Ontario. We're here to do that work.
Thanks very much. This is exciting for me. It's been good today, and you've made my heart sing. Thank you for your comments, Councillor Mitchell, Councillor Finch, and Councillor Gregg.
All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We will get to work. Thank you. And next up is 7C, Tegan Morris, Embro Dog Park Grant Requests. So just come on up and make sure that hit the little button and make sure that it's lit up red, and we will all hear you. And Jacob's got you looked after for your slideshow, and I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, is it working? Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Tegan Morris. I'm with one of our group members, Diane Norman. We're here to present the proposal of a dog park in Embro. So that is the general scope of the project. Do you want to click through just a couple of slides, please? The next one. Yep, that's good. So we are seeking approval to become a committee of council, as well as to be accepted into Zorra Township's Community Partnerships Capital Project Grant Program in order to bring a dog park to the village or community of Embro. Can you click through, please? So a little bit about Embro and our community now. There is just under 400 households in the community with 220 dogs. You may be wondering, how did we get a dog population census? Well, one of our lovely members, Deb Baker, who's also here, she had boots on the ground. She was out surveying and knocking on doors. So we did get a pretty accurate number as to how many dogs live in the community, and it is a significant number of dogs that do live in Embro. Currently, the way pet owners are exercising their dogs, they do things such as take them to like the local ball diamonds, playgrounds, soccer fields. Not ideal because those public spaces are obviously not intended to be used as dog facilities, but that's what we are currently limited to. If you do want to access a dog park, then pretty much at minimum, it does currently take about 20 minutes to get to the nearest dog park. So going to places such as Woodstock, Ingersoll, here in Tempsford or Stratford, etc. Can you click through, please? So why a dog park? We are proposing a dog park to be in Embro that is within walking distance to the majority of the community. First of all, it's great for dogs. It lets them socialize, get exercise, expend their energy. And also it will mean that people or pet owners no longer have to take their dogs to the previous public spaces that I just mentioned. Next slide, please. So while a dog park obviously has many benefits to the dogs themselves, there's also a lot of benefits to humans and the pet owners themselves. So a dog park does go beyond just the dogs. Some benefits that a dog park would provide to humans includes the fact that it would bring neighbors together, strengthen the friendships and relationships. It supports mental health by encouraging outdoor time and just social interaction. It would provide newcomers to Embro the opportunity to meet new people and better integrate into the community. It would encourage inclusivity as well. If you have a dog, it doesn't matter what age or gender or background or ethnicity you are. If you have a dog, you can probably understand that it's a nice thing to kind of bond over with other dog owners. It also just generally promotes a active and healthy lifestyle for humans or pet owners. Next slide, please. So the proposal specifically, we are proposing 2 locations. The first one being Matheson Park in Embro. This is the more suitable or ideal location due to its location. It's safe, easy, walkable, good spot. The second proposal or location would be at the Embro Arena. Not as ideal in terms of location, just because it's not quite as accessible. It's not easy or safe to walk to. Granted, though, it does have a good space to put a dog park, but those are the 2 options. Things to consider. First of all, the location, so I kind of just touched on that, but the walkability factor, that is something that would be important. The amenities of where we would be putting the dog park, so what's already existing and what would need to be added or developed or built. The landscaping, so does it have sufficient green space? Is there things like trees for shade? Dog amenities, so there probably wouldn't already be dog amenities, but can things such as drinking water and waste disposal be easily added to that space? And then also special considerations. So how would a dog park impact or affect the surrounding area or people that live in the neighborhood where it would be? As for the cost, so I won't go super into detail. You guys have it broken down line by line. The general fixed cost to develop a dog park would be just under $42,000 based off of the research that we've done and the quotes that we've gotten from several contractors in the area. And then as for the variable and ongoing costs, we have projected that this would cost just under $2,200 to maintain and operate the dog park. Next slide, please. So our success so far, we've reached out to, I would say, primarily local businesses in the area to inquire about pledge donations. We've had a lot of positive feedback and people who have been, who have indicated that they are willing to financially contribute to this project. I think, is it okay to share that we do have an updated number? So we sent this in last week. We had just under $3,000 in pledge donations. It has changed since. For a good reason, though. We've actually been able to secure another hopefully around $5,000 in pledge donations. So that would bring us, I guess, up to around $8,000 in donations, pledged donations rather, as of right now. So just in summary, a dog park, it's more than just for the dogs. We truly believe that it would be a great addition for our community, for the animals, but also for the humans and the pet owners. It provides a ton of physical, mental, and social benefits to humans as well. But that is our dog park proposal. So thank you so much for the opportunity to present this, and we would be happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Thank you. Questions from council? Deputy Mayor.
So you don't have to have specific, because if this is to move forward, then there's, work to finalize some things. But in your scope for the fencing costs, have you considered, or does that include incorporation of a small dog section for the park?
Yes, it does. Yeah. Yep.
Anyone else? Councillor Mitchell.
You beat me to it on that one. My question is, and my compliments that you've raised $8,000 already and you haven't even got official approval to go ahead with it. Do you have a timeline for fundraising and installation? How quickly do you hope to get this done?
Yeah, maybe you can speak a little bit more on this.
Well, it comes down to whether we become a committee of council this year. We probably could be doing it in the fall of this year. We think we could raise the funds within that time. But Sophia made it clear that if we weren't made committee of council, that potentially, if we were made a committee of council, that it would probably be a project for 2027. So for sure, we believe that we would have the funds raised by 2027.
Any other questions from council? Not seeing any. So how this is going to go, just so you know, there will not necessarily be a motion from council. I mean, they're free to make a motion to deal with your delegation if they want. I don't see any of them jumping up to do that. So what's probably going to happen then is there is a report from staff later on in this agenda with recommendations from staff as to how council will deal with this delegation request and the proposal for a dog park, and council will hear that and decide then. You're more than welcome to stay and listen to that if you want. You're also free to go if you want. It's up to you, just so you know. I didn't want you to finish your delegation and think that we hadn't decided and therefore it was a no. Can't promise you that it won't be a no, but council will decide later on when we get to that report, okay?
Okay, perfect.
Anything else?
I don't think so. Is there anything else we can share to help educate you guys, or any other questions?
Looks like they're good.
Awesome.
Thank you. Next up is item 7D, Natalie Hazeliger and Tom Dufton, Embro Minor Ball Mini Pitch Diamond Grant Request. Same deal, just make sure the little red light is on, and if you have a slideshow, Jake will make sure you're ready to go, and I will turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, councillors. Thank you for meeting with us to discuss our project grant application. Next slide, please. So in summary, Embro Minor Baseball, we're applying under policy 510 capital project grant. Our project is to build a mini pitch diamond behind our existing diamond in Embro. So it's a partnership, township in kind 30% and Embro Minor Baseball fundraising 70%. Next slide, please. So our description, we'd like it to be located behind our existing diamond at Matheson Park. So this is going to be primarily for U5 to U9 field layout with bases and pitchers mounds. It's modeled after the similar small diamond in Hickson or in Springfield. So it's for Township, it's going to be the groundwork, excavation, and grading. And for EMBA, it's going to be our fundraising and our backstop installation. Next slide, please. So Hickson's mini pitch, you can see that image there. Next slide, thank you. Hickson's location, so again, very similar to what we're looking at here in Embro. Next slide, please. So you can see that proposal at Matheson Park in that back corner. Next slide, please. So background and need, so our registration growth has increased, our demand for diamond time obviously has increased. So with only one diamond, it is difficult to schedule games and practices, and Harrington is not suitable for games at this point. The new mini pitch is going to improve that access, reduce travel and benefits. You can see that significant growth from 2019 up to 2026. Last year we had 156 kids registered for Embro minor baseball, so significant growth, and we continue to see that. Next slide, please. So our background and need for parent survey. So we do put a survey out every year to our parents to see what we can do better to help with the MBA. So that in 2024, so we had 30 parents out of the survey suggest that yes, they would be willing to travel and 5 no. And last year, 31 parents said yes and 13 said no. So we can see there are changes and there is less willingness to travel to that location. Next slide, please. So our background, need, and parent survey. So additional comments on diamond time. I prefer a diamond in Embro. Our team had practice at Zorra Public School, so we are utilizing that along with Harrington and obviously Matheson Park. The added diamond would be great, be a benefit to the younger age groups, and give an opportunity to work on infield play, better batting mechanics for the older teams. Embro needs a small diamond in the back similar to Hickson for the young players. Harrington is not safe with the rough infield, multiple other things, the traffic, the lack of restrooms or water for the children as well. They're excited about the possibility of a second diamond in Embro. Embro needs a small diamond in the back like Hickson for young kids to play, not take up so much of that main diamond. And another diamond would be great. We could have more practices. Next slide, please. So budget, we won't micro this down, but the township in-kind service for site prep, $11,306, and then ongoing diamond dragging park maintenance, and Embro minor baseball, fundraising for the balance of the project, costs, backstop, bases, mound, players, benches, other equipment, $26,380, and then coordinate volunteers and suppliers to do the installation. Next slide, please. So our rough timeline, so you can see 0426 for site prep as we continue to walk across that and just kind of finishing up there in August. So we are hopeful for this to move forward this year. Next slide, please. So community impact, strengthens community identity through township community and collaboration, builds long-term infrastructure for multiple user groups, reduces pressure on existing Embro Diamond, promotes youth participation and active living, and expands our opportunities for U5 and U9 baseball. Next slide, please. Our life cycle strategy here and maintenance. So township, standard ongoing diamond dragging, field and park maintenance, Embro minor baseball, fundraising for future enhancements, things like additional fencing kind of out the sides, dugout covers, bleachers, and the infrastructure longevity is 15 plus years. Matheson Park's been there for quite some time, same with Harrington, so quite a while. Next slide, please. That is the last one. Okay. Conclusion. Mini pitch project is cost effective and community driven, meets capital project grant objectives under policy 510. Our goal is completion before the end of the 2026 season, provides safe, accessible, sustainable recreation for youth and families.
Thanks. Questions from council? Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, we talked about the Harrington Diamond, which is very underused. And you mentioned in your presentation a few reasons that it's not suitable, but is the main reason parents don't want to go to Harrington because of the distance to drive, or because of the condition of the field?
Thank you for your question. So there's multiple reasons. So it is the travel and the condition. The condition of that diamond is very uneven out in the outfield. Also, we are I guess the group we're focusing on is that younger group, that U5 to U9. So we're right on the highway. So it's like herding cats if you've ever had U5 baseball players. So it is difficult to keep them organized. The lack of facilities is another thing. So we have a portable washroom brought in every year, but there is no drinking water there either. So there are a number of items as to why they would prefer to be in Masson Park. We just put that drinking station in there as well, plus with the facilities we have.
Okay, so it's not, there are deficiencies in there that contributes, not just the drive.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Anyone else? Question from me. I think on the graph that you showed that 2019 up to 2025, and I think that's because in 2018 there was no Embro minor ball, right? Or like, there was one team in 2018.
That was the first team for
Years, right? Okay, so it was 17. There was no team then, right? I know sometime around there was no. For a few years there was nothing, right? Okay, so it's slightly more impressive even then. And I guess my other question is: Are you prepared for the post-World Series run and enrollment surge, right?
We
all
are.
the little Ernies and Jose's and
yeah, all the sliding mitts, all the flash is coming to softball. Yeah.
Wow. All right. Any other questions from council? So same deal again, right? There's probably not going to be a motion here. It's up to them if they want to do that in a minute. But the next agenda items are recreation. Not this one right away, but then after that, and they will debate and decide what to do then.
Perfect. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next thing up then, 8 reports from Public Services Department. 8.2 Recreation and Facilities Division Report 2025-124 from the Manager of Recreation and Facilities regarding South Park Playground replacement. Director Oliver, is there anything you want to highlight for council before I ask them for questions?
No, nothing to highlight, and open for questions.
Questions from council on the report? Not seeing any. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mitchell.
It's a short one. Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Finch. The council endorse option 2 as detailed in report 2025-124.
Councillor Mitchell is the mover.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've had use of or needed to use a playground, but the pictures are quite impressive. I am impressed that staff consulted with the experts on playground usage, which was the, I think, under 10 age group, and the feedback on, according to the report, was that option number 2 was the one that the consumers wanted. So I think we should follow the recommendation of staff, which is based on the recommendation of the young people of Thamesford to proceed with option number 2.
Councillor Finch is the seconder. Anyone else? I would just add that I was here the day that the Thamesford Public School visited and reviewed this, and we're all in danger, okay? Because the quality of questions and input that class gave on this was supreme. Like I pointed out to the teacher, we pointed out a couple of students that we were like, they are ready for council like now. So quality input, definitely. Anybody else? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And then 8.2 Recreation and Facilities Division Report 2025-121 from the Manager of Recreation and Facilities regarding 2026 capital project grant submissions. Director Oliver, is there anything you want to highlight for council before I ask them for questions?
Nothing to highlight.
Questions from council on the report? Councillor Mitchell.
Steve, apologize for not sending this before, but the project for the ball diamond, they're asking for in-kind services. Now, when we provide money, it's easy. This is the amount. There it is. How do we track in-kind services? What happens if what we provide is more than the 11,000, whatever it is? And what happens if it comes up a little short? How do we handle that?
So I've already done the estimates on the measurements that were provided, and I calculated the gravel and staff time. We'd figure about a week. So all in, we'd have about that amount into it. I did buff in a little bit of contingency just in case we run into some unexpected stuff. But I feel confident we'd be
pretty close to that number.
Close to that, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the the 30% of the total, which fits into our policy, so.
That's correct.
Okay, that's good. Thanks, Stu.
Any other questions on the report? Do I have a mover? Councillor Finch.
Moved by Councillor Finch, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. The council support in principle the Embro Dog Park project, and that council establish a committee of council to be known as the Embro Dog Park Committee, and that council direct township staff to prepare terms of reference for the committee, including number of committee members, scope of work, design, and plans, and that the township's 30% portion of the project to a threshold limit of $12,575.30 be included in the 2027 budget funded for the Recreation Reserve.
Councillor Finch is the mover. Do you wish to speak to that?
I'd just like to thank the volunteers in Embro for coming forward with this delegation. Zorra Council appreciates every volunteer that steps forward. Thank you.
Councillor Mitchell has a second.
Yeah, I haven't owned a dog for almost 40 years because I live on a road with a lot of truck traffic, and after several fatal incidents, I gave up. But I understand the importance of having a safe place to interact with your dog, and the comments that were made in the presentation about the benefits to the community of people meeting there and letting their dogs run and visiting with other people, getting to know other people. I think that was a point well taken, and I'll echo the comments from Councillor Finch about the proactivity of the group that's got together. I think it's a strength of one of the policies we've put in place that both the council, our staff, and the community understands that there is a mechanism in place to provide this type of facilities, and that as we've seen in other projects, the buy-in that you get from the community actually being involved in the design and the fundraising and the implementation, I think is valuable too. So I fully support us going ahead with this.
Anyone else? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. There you go. Staff will get in touch with you to form the committee, and off you go. We have a motion for the other. Councillor Finch?
Moved by Councillor Finch.
You're not going to stay and hear what happens with the ball diamond? They sat here and listened to what was going to happen to you. I mean, come on, cheer each other on. Like, what happened to the whole community spirit thing? All right, Councillor Finch. Yeah.
Moved by Councillor Finch, seconded by Councillor Mitchell, that council endorse the Embro Minor Ball project, and that council directs staff to include the township's 30% of total project costs to the threshold limit of $11,305.98 as an in-kind donation of labor in 2026.
Councillor Finch is the mover. Do you wish to speak to that?
Once again, I just want to thank Embro Minor Ball for coming forward and working with Zorra Township to make Embro Minor Ball better. Thank you.
Councillor Mitchell is the second.
Having spent most of my 18 years as a minor hockey parent, driving to places like Hensel and Moncton for ice time, I understand the desire to have a facility right in Embro as opposed to driving up to Harrington, and the information that was given to us tonight about the shortcomings of that facility for the group that they're aiming to accommodate. The fact that there is land adjacent to the existing ball diamond in Embro certainly makes running a program a lot easier. So I think considering, also echo the comments about the involvement of the Embro ball to advance this. So I'm in favor of going ahead with this project as well.
Anyone else? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Now you can go. And we're going to just take a 5-minute break. 5:22, we have quorum, so we'll return from break and get back to business, and we are at item 9.2A, Building Drainage and Bylaw Services Report 2025-120 from the Chief Building Official Drainage Superintendent regarding notice of a public meeting relating to a comprehensive building fee review recommendations. Matt, is there anything you want to highlight for council before I ask them for questions?
Nothing to highlight.
Questions from council on the report? Not seeing any. Do I have a mover? Just
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Stewart, that council direct staff to provide 21 days notice of a public meeting to be held during the December 17th, 2025 council meeting.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And 9.3, Financial Services Report 2025-122 from the Manager of Financial Services Treasurer regarding the 2026 budget. Manager Grogan, is there anything you want to highlight for council before I ask them for questions?
Thank you. Since the writing of this report, 2 further budget impacts have been identified for 2026. The first relates to Beachville Museum. And as a bit of background, Zorra shares 50% of the costs of curator and assistant position wages and benefits, and 40% of Union Gas Hydro lawn and grounds maintenance and snow removal costs. The museum has finalized their 2026 budget, and the resulting increase over the initial draft budget for Zorra is $10,952. The total year-over-year increase of $17,952 relates entirely to wages and benefit increases as a result of a third-party wage review. Dr. Radu, museum curator, will be appearing as a delegation to council on December 3rd to present their 2026 budget. The second impact identified was as the result of a change in group benefit rates from projections that were previously made by our provider. Initial projections provided an increase in group benefit rates of 7.1% over 2025. Recent correspondence provides revised projections, and as a result, staff have eliminated the 7.1% increase, which has resulted in savings of $12,763. So combined, the recently identified impacts result in net savings of $1,811. The revised 2026 tax levy would now equal $12,829,962, which represents an increase of $598,117, or 4.89%. This results in a revised projected residential tax rate increase of 3.08%. Using MPAC's projected assessment for 2026, which reflects growth of 0.99%, and using 2025 tax ratios, the 2026 increase in Zorra taxation to the average residential home, which is assessed at $275,000, would be $55.74, while the 2026 increase in Zorra taxation on farmland assessed at $1.5 million would be $66.19. We're happy to take any questions on the impacts that I've just discussed or on any of the content of the report.
I'm just going to ask, before I ask council, I'm going to ask a couple of clarification questions to make sure I understand that verbal part correctly. So the resultant levy increase then would be 4.89%?
4.89%, yes.
And the resultant tax rate increase would be 3.08%?
That is correct.
Thank you. Questions from council? Councilor Mitchell.
Everybody will be relieved to know my list is much shorter this time than it was the last meeting. The motion that was passed on June 19th, 2024 states in part that council approve the capital project listing set out in Chapter 5 of the Development Charge Background Study dated April 5th, 2024 as amended, subject to further annual review during the capital budget process. So does that mean that only the numbers can be adjusted for inflation, or can other amendments be made to the list?
And I will apologize because my development charge responses are always lengthy and long-winded. So here we go. Chapter 5 of the DC study itself, in section 5.1, states the nature of the capital projects and timing identified reflects council's current intention. Over time, township projects and priorities change, and council's intentions may alter. Different capital projects and timing of projects may be necessary to meet the need for services required by new growth. From an administrative standpoint, the process of changing projects that have been identified in a DC background study after it has been completed involves a number of steps that include a review of the background study by economists to understand the changes and how they affect the DCs, public consultation if necessary, recalculation of the DC rates and update of the fee schedule if necessary, and updating of the bylaw if necessary. The gross capital cost estimates that are included in the DC study are presented in 2024 dollars and are based on current estimates at the time of the study. As we near the construction year of projects identified, project budgets reflected in our capital plans may change from the DC background study, given CPI increases, the non-residential building construction price index increases, current economic situations like supply chains and tariffs, actual project attributes, such as the square footage of a building addition, kilometers of trails, or as another example, the number of playground features that are included. So over the life of the DC bylaw, variances exist also between the cost estimates for the DC eligible projects that are included in the study and the actual final costs of those projects. In addition, variances exist between the estimated collection of DCs based on the growth projections that are included in the DC background study and the actual DC revenues that we've collected. DC reconciliations and adjustments are calculated with every new development charge background study by third-party economists to account for these variances. So the short answer is projects can change and costs can change as well.
Thanks, Kim. Next question is, the next two questions are just things that came to mind as I went back over the budget. And one was about the building of a storage structure for the recreation public works equipment. So the question is, where has the Thamesford Recreation and Public Works equipment been stored since the former fire hall was sold?
So it's kind of, in the summer months, it's scattered all over the place. Most of it's outside. Trailers sit outside, some tractors sit outside. If not, they sit inside on the arena floor if it's available. In the wintertime, we try to get the trailers in at the old Contour building at the ZMF property. The more, it's stored pretty much primarily at the ZMF property just because it's, we're worried about theft for a piece of equipment like that. So it's, staff have to run back and forth every time they want to use it. So primarily, yeah, it's kind of all over the place. There's a bunch of attachments also that are for the tractors, the diamond draggers, and they're just kind of scattered here and about. So it's kind of disorganized, and it's nice to have everything in one spot. The other disadvantage since we sold the old fire hall that we used was in the winter months we used to store the sidewalk plow that we used to do the sidewalks in Thamesford. Staff would report there to the fire hall and leave from there. Now we have to drive back. The sidewalk machine has to be driven back and forth out to the ZMF building, which adds another 30-40 minutes each trip, and not to mention wear and tear on a 250,000 plus machine. So it would be nice to have something close to where we could do that, deploy that machine from a central area in Tempsford.
Thanks, Stephen. 200,000 sounds like a lot of money for a storage shed, but as you just indicated, there will be some efficiencies and also some less wear and tear on equipment resulted by having it all in a central location.
Yeah, equipment, just having the equipment stored inside, I mean, it prolongs the life, as we know. It doesn't get the weather. The tires don't get the sun checking. And just the convenience for staff to not to have to run all over to do something, to get something accomplished. Everything's there and can be organized. It'll keep their existing facilities much neater and safer as well. Like there's the track rooms in the summertime, it gets kind of crazy in there with weed eaters and everything else all strewn about. So it'd be nice to have something where things can be hung on the wall and everything has its place.
Okay, thanks, Steve. My last question, at the last budget meeting, we talked about the de-superheaters. And there's one going in at Embro and one going in Tempsford. The one in Embro costs $12,000. The one in Tempsford is $75,000. So why is one so much more expensive than the other?
Thanks to Sophia, she helped out with this answer. But the one in Tempsford requires supply and install of all new piping from the condenser to the Zamboni room. So that added quite a bit of extra cost.
Okay, so the units are similar, but there's a lot more involved in
That's
one
great.
as opposed to the other.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. Do I have a mover? Deputy Mayor.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Stewart, that Council approve in principle the 2026 budget from Report 2025-122 as amended for final adoption at the December 3rd, 2025 Council meeting, and that Council direct staff to bring the 2026 budget bylaw to an upcoming Council meeting.
Deputy Mayor, as the mover, do you wish to speak? As the seconder? Anyone else? Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, I do have some comments on the draft budget, and I just want to start out by saying that we live in a world where now more than ever we need to spend taxpayers' money on need-to-dos, not want-to-dos. And what I consider the criteria for need-to-do as it relates to a township budget is that it meets our obligations regarding asset management to maintain and or replace existing infrastructure, maintains our level of service, reduces our liability regarding infrastructure failure, both for the general public and our employees, and wherever possible, improves operational efficiencies and productivity. So there's lots of items in the draft budget that I support because they are definitely need-to-dos. And that includes the cost of living increase, the improved benefits, and the salary grade adjustments for our staff because we want to attract and keep quality staff, and beyond that, it's just the right way to treat people. I've agreed for many years the change we made to that capital projects be funded out of reserves. I think it's a responsible way to do budgeting. If there's a drawback to it, I think we're less skeptical about some of the capital projects we approve because they don't have a direct impact on the levy, but it does in a way because in order to maintain healthy reserves, we have to put money into them when we take money out. And that money either for a large part comes from taxation. So there's $4.23 million in this budget for transfers to reserves. I would have liked to seen that reduced by about $340,000, but that's not going to happen. Some projects that are in the budget that do meet the criteria as needs, $108,000 for fire department PPE, $80,000 for the Tempsford multi-courts project, which has been a long time commitment, which hopefully next year actually gets built. $35,000 for the new ceiling at the Tempsford Arena, $150,000 for the chiller at the Embro Arena, $1.6 million for bridges, $1.2 million for roads, $820,000 for the public work truck and equipment, and then there's a whole series of other smaller items that I'm not going to go through the whole list. But if anybody that's watching, that's a summary of some of the major projects that that we're going to be funding in the next year. There are 3 budget items that I don't support, 2 that I'm just uncomfortable with, and 1 that I'm adamantly opposed to. In the first category is the hiring another staff member in the general government department, and I appreciate that the role has been redefined from the original proposal, that the term was reduced and the cost was reduced. But I've long had an issue with the hiring of more township staff, and I quoted the stats last year as to the expansion of a number of staff people over the last 6 years. And I understand that we need more staff because of government downloading, increased legislative requirements, improved service levels. But governments at all levels, including municipal councils, need to do what everybody else has had to do, and that's do what you can with the resources available. And if that means that in 2026 some of the strategic plan goals can't be completed because the resources are required to run the election, I would say the election takes priority, and that's how the money should be spent. The other thing I'm not comfortable with is spending $32,900 on cubicles, and I realize they're not just walls, there's desks and chairs and computer stuff that goes with it too. But when I look at this new administration building and I compare it to what our staff was working in previously, I look at all the new offices and all the new spaces, spending almost $33,000 additionally on it at this time is a tough sell for me, and I think it's a tough sell for many taxpayers. Neither of those would cause me to vote against the budget, but the third item does, and for me it's a deal breaker, and that is spending almost $3.1 million for half a gymnasium for all the reasons that I stated last meeting. And I want to clarify that the $3.1 million doesn't include a soccer field. In Table 5.3 of the DC report, there's a separate line item for a soccer field at $206,000, of which $103,000 would be funded through development charges. And I want to thank the Deputy Mayor for seconding the motion that I brought forward at the last meeting so that we could debate the issue. Not only it gave me an opportunity to explain the reasons that I do not support going ahead with this co-build, and I also learned a couple of things in that discussion that I hadn't known before.
I hate to do this, but I'm gonna stop you there because according to the procedural bylaw that you gave me, no member shall, this is section 10.1C, no member shall criticize any decision of the council except for the purpose of moving that question be reconsidered. So we can't go over the ground because at the last council meeting we passed a resolution, or did not pass a resolution, that the township does not proceed with the proposed agreement. Council can any member of council can challenge the ruling of the chair and by vote can overrule the chair, but until that happens, I'm going to follow the procedure bylaw that you gave me. So unless you want to move reconsideration and have a seconder, we need to move on from that subject.
Okay, last thing I want to do is be procedurally out of order. So I will just, the reasons that I was making this points was to explain why I do not support the budget. So I will just go to my last point and say that because of that decision to continue with the co-build project, I cannot support this budget. All I can do is try to separate myself as far from the decision to include that in the budget, and for that reason I'll be asking for a recorded vote.
And sorry, I lost track now of who moved and who seconded, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Stewart. And any other speakers on the motion on the floor? So I support the motion on the floor. I think it's a good budget. I think when I look at what CPI was, you know, and it never lines up perfectly, but CPI was and what the construction price index, I think, I think this is well in line with that. There are definitely some nice to haves in this budget that are not need to haves. But frankly, we received 2 delegations from 2 separate groups of residents tonight saying there's more things they would like to have that are nice to haves. I think neither the dog park or the ball diamond could be classified as need to have, but our residents came to us and say we want these want to haves, and some of the things that are in the budget that are nice to haves are similar to that I think residents will want to have. I think it's a responsible budget, and having gone through it, myself and had my own questions and answers from staff, and the successive budget meetings that we've had as council and had questions and answers for staff, I'm comfortable that this is a budget that I will be comfortable defending to residents, that there's going to be that it's a reasonable increase and that it's for things that they will find value in. So I'm very much in support of it. If there's no one else to speak to it, I'll turn it over to the clerk to run the recorded vote. Go ahead.
Okay, I will poll based on ward, and then you can vote on the motion. Start with the mayor.
Yes.
Ward 4.
Yes.
Ward 1.
Yes.
Ward 3.
No.
Ward 2.
Yes.
That's carried.
Motion is carried. And I believe that was it. There was only the one motion for that report, correct? Deputy Mayor.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Stewart, that the November 26th special budget council meeting be canceled, and that council direct staff to provide notice of such cancellation.
Is there any discussion? All is in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And I believe now correspondence requiring direction, item 10A. Do I have a mover? Councillor Finch.
Moved by Councillor Finch, seconded by Councillor Gregg, that council support the correspondence for Rural Ontario Municipal Association regarding rural school closures, and the council direct the mayor to advocate on behalf of Zorra Township.
Councillor Finch is the mover. Do you wish to speak to that?
This directive that has been brought forward aligns with Mr. Calandra's position. He has spoken many times on his priority being the importance of putting parents, students, and teachers first. In my opinion, he understands the importance of rural schools and wants to protect students and the health and well-being of our communities. I am very supportive of this correspondence from ROMA regarding rural schools closures.
Councillor Mitchell was the seconder? Great. Sorry, Deputy Mayor. Any other discussion? All is in favor? Opposed? That is carried. No boards and committees updates, no information items, no unfinished business or notices of motion. Bylaws. Councillor Stewart.
Moved by Stewart, second by Gregg, the bylaws 47-25, 48-25, and 49-25 be taken as read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. And further, that the mayor and clerk are hereby authorized to sign the same and affix the corporate seal thereto.
Is there any discussion? All is in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And items of community interest. Start with Councillor Finch.
The Embro Thistle Theatre is hosting the Perils of Persephone, which I went and did the opening remarks last week, and it is a wonderful show, and I believe Marcus and Katie are going this week to do opening regards. This weekend coming is the last weekend for it, so get your tickets. Also, on the Saturday evening, after the show, the Embro Legion is hosting karaoke. So when you're done the show, you can head on over and do karaoke.
Anyone else have anything in the calendar? Oxford County 4-H is hosting their annual dinner in the Embro Community Center this Friday night. Thurkettles, who actually were here a while ago for that ARU application, are having an open house this Saturday from 1 till 3.
The Embro Agricultural Society is having their Santa Claus Parade on December 6th at 6 p.m. And you're welcome to join them back at Knox United Church for a meet and greet with Santa and a charity bake sale.
Is the Thamesford Lions Parade, do we know that yet? It's usually like, what is it, usually the? Sorry, yeah. It's usually like the last, there's a regular set thing for that, right? Last Saturday or something, Sunday?
It's usually the last Sunday, so the 21st it should be.
Okay.
Thamesford Calathumpian Christmas Parade is on December 21st at 6 p.m. starting from North Park. If you're interested in participating, you can give them a call and get your registration information.
6 o'clock, you said? Yeah. Excellent, thank you. Anybody else with anything on the calendar? All right, then, I think all we have left is confirmatory and adjournment. Who has confirmatory?
Moved by Stewart, second by Grigg, that bylaw 50-25, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council held November 19th, 2025, be read a first, second, and third time this November 19th, 2025, and further that the mayor and clerk are hereby authorized to sign the same and affix the corporate seal thereto.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And a motion to adjourn.
Moved by Stewart, seconded by Grigg, that this session of council be now adjourned and herewith closed at 5:48 p.m. and the next meeting of council be called for December 3rd, 2025 at 9:30 a.m. in the council chambers at the Zorra Municipal Center.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And we are adjourned.